So next, section 9.2 is called regular polygons and circles. Okay, circles are special because they're going to have a different kind. They don't have a perimeter. They have what's called a circumference instead. So we're going to get the circumference and the area. And so that's the first problem we're going to start with. Example number 1, we're going to find the circumference and the area of a circle. So we're going to draw a fancy circle. Mine's kind of flat, but hopefully yours is pretty good. So go from the center out to the side. That's called the radius. And that radius is going to be 6.2 centimeters. All right. So if you're following the 5 steps that I gave you the first day of this chapter, you're going to start by identifying it. Obviously, it's a circle. Second thing you're going to do is you're going to write the formula. So the first formula we need is circumference. Since they gave us the radius, I'm going to use the formula that has the radius. So I'm going to say 2 pi r. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute in the values that I know. The only value that they give you on a circle is either the radius or the diameter. So in this case, I'm going to say 2 times pi times 6.2. And then I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to simplify all the numbers that I see there. So leave the pi alone for just a second and you're going to multiply 2 times 6.2 and you get 12.4. So this is equal to 12.4 pi. Okay. And then since it's the circumference, it's like doing the perimeter, except for it's not the perimeter. So your answer should just be in centimeters. Okay? If you're asked to give your answer in pi, this is how you would leave your answer. But if you're asked to give your answer simplified or as a decimal, you're going to take that 12.4, so just leave it in your calculator, and then you're going to multiply it times the pi button. So if you look on the left-hand column down here, you're going to see this pi button. If you push it, it's going to put a little pi up on your screen. And then when you hit equals, it's going to give you this big long decimal, right? Because pi is a big long decimal. So we're going to round it to the nearest hundredth. So I've got 38.95. It's either going to stay a 5 or round up. So we look to the number next to it, which is a 5. So does it stay or round up? Round up. So I'm going to say approximately equal to 38.96 centimeters. Okay? Now, depending on how you're asked to give your answer, it'll be either one of these. Okay? Sometimes the pi will be left in the answer, and sometimes pi should be multiplied in. Okay? Just look at the directions. What are the directions asking you for? They want it as a decimal or they want it in terms of pi. Okay? So that's the circumference. Now let's do the area. So for area, we're going to write down the formula, which is pi r squared. Then we're going to substitute in that radius. So we're going to have pi times 6.2 squared. So I'm going to take that 6.2 and square it on my calculator. And I get 38.44. And that is in pi, in terms of pi. And since it's area, we're going to say centimeters squared. That's the first answer. Now we want to take that value and multiply it by the pi button. So just leave it in your calculator and hit times. Notice it takes the previous answer, hit the pi button, equals. So we've got this big long decimal again. So we've got 120.76. There's a 2 next to it, so it stays. So it should be 120.76 centimeters squared. And there are your 2 answers, depending on how they ask for it. Okay, if you're not sure how they're asking for it, raise your hand and I'll come help you read the directions and we'll figure it out. But if you're in doubt, just do both. Okay? Any questions on example number 1 there? All right, example number 2. We're going to look at an 8-sided figure, and these are kind of hard to draw. So if you need help, sometimes you can look it up on the internet, or you can trace it off your formula sheet if they have it. They don't have to be perfect. It just has to be a rough sketch of an octagon. Octagons have 8 sides. And so the first thing you want to do is identify it as an octagon. Okay. And you're going to get 2 values on the octagon. So from the center going to the side over here, that's called the what? It's a funny word, right? Say apothum. Apothum. It's almost like you're saying opossum, like that little creepy animal, but it's apothum. Okay? So in this case, the apothum is 8.3 inches. And one of the sides, so just this side right here, is 6.9 inches. Obviously not drawn to scale. And so the first thing we want to do, or the next thing we want to do after we identify it as an octagon, is to write the formula. So the formula for a polygon is the area is equal to 1/2 the apothum times the perimeter. Well, the apothum we've got. So we can say 1/2 times 8.3, and then we just need the perimeter, right? We don't have the perimeter, but we do have one of the sides. One of the sides is 6.9. How many sides does this octagon have? 8. So to get the perimeter, we can take 6.9 and add it up 8 times, or we can multiply 6.9 times 8. You should get 55.2. So that's what goes right here, 55.2. All right. So on your calculator, I would multiply these 2 numbers first, then divide by 2. So go 8.3 times 55.2, divide that by 2. I've got the area at 229.08, and this one was in inches. So for the units, we say inches squared. All right. If you don't want to divide by 2, you can multiply by what? What's 1/2 as a decimal? 0.5, right? You can multiply by 0.5. Whichever is faster, easier, better for you, right? Example number 3. Example number 3, we've got this triangle, which we know the formula for a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height, right? But I'm not going to give you the height. I'm going to give you instead the apothum, which is going to be 8 meters, and one of the sides, and it's slanted, so it's 27.7 meters. Okay? So the first thing we want to do is identify this as an equilateral triangle. And if you look at your formula sheet down at the bottom, you'll see 1/2 the base times the height. But you can also, depending on what information they give you, if they've given you the length of the base, and if they've given you the height, then use that formula. But they didn't. They gave you the apothum and the perimeter. So we're going to use 1/2 the apothum times the perimeter. Okay? So we're going to substitute in the apothum, which we know is 8. We just need to get the perimeter. We know one of the sides is 27.7. How many of them are there? 3. So we're going to multiply that by 3. Punch it in the calculator. You should get 83.1. That's what goes right here, 83.1. So this time I'm going to multiply 0.5 times 8 times 83.1. Hit the equal sign. We've got 332.4. What are the units on example 3? Meters what? Squared.